Welcome everybody, Mans and Flower Show, back after a 1-week hiatus. My name is Jeff Mans from FantasyAlarm.com, alongside the Oracle, Ray Flowers. Ray, are you excited? Are you all baseball prepping up?
Yeah, well, not only am I prepping for baseball, doing the Fantasy Alarm Draft Guide, starting to put that all together. We're at the first week of the fantasy playoffs for most people, Jeff. Week 14 of the NFL season. It doesn't get more exciting than this.
It's really exciting, the playoffs, if you make it at least. If you didn't make it, it's kind of not exciting. It's kind of like a kick to the nuts, which doesn't feel very good, especially when you go to sit down later on that day. Playoff time, Ray, what's the strategies? What's your situation for playoffs? I've been saying all week, this is the time of year where stop being cute. Stop the whole, oh, this guy's a sleeper, or this guy might do something, or I'm going to pick up this guy's backup. No, all that is well and good weeks 1 through 13. Now, playoff time, it's completely over. How say you, Ray?
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And, we were doing a live chat at Fantasy Alarm, which you do every Friday at 2 o'clock Eastern Time. And we got the question, do I play Teddy Bridgewater this week because he faces the Jets?
Oh, come on.
And does that make Bridgewater a QB1? And I'm like, no. And that's
No.
exactly what you're talking about. That's the kind of thing that you don't want to get too cute. I mean, if you're in the playoffs, there's a reason you're in the playoffs. You probably haven't been rolling through 35 players to get there. You probably have a very stable core of players. Trust those players. Matchups matter. I'm not saying that they don't, but don't do something like elevating the 25th best quarterback to 10 simply because he's got a good matchup.
You don't worry about Teddy Bridgewater. Shouldn't be on a roster. Don't roster players that don't matter. They're not important. There's like 15 quarterbacks you should be starting. Remember this also when it's playoff times, everybody. 50 to 60% of the player pool is now gone. They're eliminated. They don't matter. So there could be teams with, whoever, Antonio Brown, Aaron Rodgers, that did not make the playoffs. So you're not playing against them every week. It doesn't matter. Right? All you have to do is win in advance. Win your matchup. That's it. Don't worry about impressing the rest of the league. Impress the rest of the league by winning your game only. It's a different mentality than it is, like I said, weeks 1 through 13. So you absolutely have to do that and prepare your roster better. Maybe get your handcuffs, maybe get some backups, maybe get a couple extra defenses for week 15 or 16. I understand that, but the rest of it, this guy might do something later on, absolutely garbage philosophy at this point in the fantasy football season. Speaking of garbage, Ray, let's talk a little garbage quarterbacks. Cleveland Brown quarterback situation last week. For no reason, Mike Pettin decided, you know what I'm going to do? I think it's a really good idea to take Brian Hoyer out and put Johnny Manziel in, because Johnny is Mr. Johnny Football, and he's exciting, and blah, blah, blah. And sure enough, got him a touchdown, took on a massive hit while he hit that car. And then next drive, completely fumbled the ball into the end zone, lay there dead while the Bills recover. They didn't give the Bills their proper touchdown that they should have, but you've seen the best and the worst sides of Manziel. What do you think? And then he decides to go with Hoyer this week, Ray. Was that the right decision? Did
you like how literally when he got hit, like you said, he just laid there? It did look like he was dead.
He just laid there with his arms folded like he was dead. Like, I swear to God.
Yeah. That's not what you do. You're Johnny Manziel. You're a pro football player. Get up.
Yes.
Brian Hoyer, he's got 1 touchdown his last 4 games. He's thrown 5 interceptions the last 2 weeks. And I said this to Kyle Ofrank on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio. I mean, I almost think that the return of Josh Gordon has hurt the Browns' offense.
Yes, it has.
And I said that, and he looked at me like I was crazy. And it's like, Brian Hoyer is now doing what Brian Hoyer never did. Brian Hoyer, there's problems with his game. He's not a complete football player. He's not an elite player. But he didn't turn the ball over. He just didn't do that, and that's why he had success. You get Gordon back, and every second or third pass is going to Gordon. They've completed, 15 to 29 passes in 2 weeks, and barely 50%, which is a terrible ratio. Hoyer is choosing to use his best weapon at the expense of making the correct decisions. Now, I don't know if going to Manziel would change any of that, because, where is he at in his development? Can he sit in the pocket and pick a defense apart? I don't know. I think that at this point, Jeff, it's almost like, we've gotten this far with Hoyer. We didn't have Josh Gordon for a huge part of the season. We haven't had Jordan Cameron for a large portion of the season. Let's give Hoyer some credit for that. I don't know if he deserves it, but I think that's what they made. Here's the brass tacks, Ray. Before Josh Gordon came back, the Cleveland offense, they were throwing the ball 32.4, 32.5, something like that. I think it was like 32.46, whatever, percent of the time. Or 32 times per game, I'm sorry.
32 pass attempts per game. They were running the ball 39 times a game before weeks 1 through 11. Then Gordon comes back. They decide, I'm going to throw 50 times. Then I think it was 42. They're averaging 42 pass attempts. 10 more pass attempts and 12 less rushing attempts because they're running less plays, because they're not moving the chains. Now that Gordon's back, you're 100% right. They've decided, now we're going to be a passing offense because we've got this weapon in Josh Gordon, instead of just inserting Gordon as part of the functional offense that was winning games. So it's impossible to read as a fantasy analyst, because what normally you do is like, okay, what does the coach want to do to win the football game? We're just going to piggyback off that, and we're going to get our fantasy numbers and move on. Now it's, they're coaching the game to lose. It's a losing premise. It was losing for the Browns last year when they were 4-12. It's been a losing premise the last couple of weeks for them as an offense as well. The more they throw, the more they lose, yet they continue to do so. It is impossible to read, and you're right. The return of Josh Gordon has absolutely hurt this offense. To tell Brian Hoyer is the best winning percentage any Browns quarterback in history not named Bernie Kosar. Yep. I mean, just look it up, everybody. And yet, you're going to replace him for Johnny Manziel. The savior's here, Ray. A 5'11", 195-pound kid who likes to roll 20s and do the finger money thing. Oh my God, he's going to save the franchise. Johnny Manziel's not the answer. He's the answer to the question nobody asked. He will never be successful in the NFL. Everybody pretty much knows this. But it's one of those things, you picked him in the first round, so why not, mess things up? No, don't use the argument that we don't know. We do know. We've seen it time after time after time. SEC quarterbacks, terrible. They come in the league, they're terrible. Forget college. College success means zero in the pros. It means nothing. Literally nothing. T. Martin was a better college quarterback than Peyton Manning at the University of Tennessee. How'd that work out in the NFL, ladies and gentlemen? Oh, God, I don't know. T. Martin, he can run the ball. He won the big game for the Volunteers. Who cares?
But Jeff, I think it goes beyond that, too, because look at the NFL in general, and we had the trend a couple years ago where we went to the running quarterback. That's kind of where everyone was with the athletic quarterback, the 6'5" guy that, can run the 4.4 40. This season, Colin Kaepernick has struggled. Cam Newton has struggled. I know in the fantasy game, Russell Wilson has been really good because of his running, but his passing is awful. I don't know if we're going to see that trend continue at the NFL. It's almost like defensive coordinators have figured out ways to force teams to not be able to utilize their quarterback in that manner as more of a runner. And if that's the case, a guy like Johnny Manziel, who, as you point out, he's not Cam Newton. He's not 6'5", 245 pounds. He's a smaller guy. How is he going to perform in an offensive era where defensive coordinators are good at adjusting to moving quarterbacks? And let's face it, with only Josh Gordon out there, because we haven't seen Jordan Cameron. Andrew Hawkins is a good player, but that's not a difference-making kind of player. This offense is kind of lacking weapons, to throw the ball to.
It's pathetic, and this whole thing, it just irritates the ever-loving hell out of me. It really does. I just get so irritated. Johnny Manziel, because he did it in college, his game does not translate to the pro level. It's very, very simple. It's like saying, a cricket player, he throws a ball 92 miles an hour. Why doesn't he be a good baseball player? Because they effing bounce the ball halfway through. It's not the same game. It's a entirely different game, different makeup, different skills to win at the NFL level. It's irritating to me. And as far as the rushing quarterbacks, the running quarterback can succeed in the NFL. But as I said on the Fantasy Alarm show on SiriusXM earlier this week, we currently have the worst coaching in the NFL than we've had in 25 years. I have not seen a batch of worse coaches. Mike Pettin, we're never going to know you in 3 years. Mike Pettin is Mike Tice. Yes, he was a head coach once, made bad decisions, and is flailing away and can't even hold a job as the offensive line coach in Atlanta, for crying out loud. This is the worst batch of coaches, head coaches at least, that we've seen in the NFL in a very, very long time. And thus, they don't know what to do with guys like RG3, Cam Newton, Colin Kaepernick. They have no clue because there's no imagination. Anyway, for Ray Flowers, it's been Jeff Mans. The Mans and Flowers show every week here on Fantasy Alarm TV. Everybody, appreciate you coming by. And we'll talk to you again next week.